Good morning, everybody.
Morning, ma'am.
Yes. So let's start the class. For that, wait a second. Okay. Any doubts with the last class? Any doubts that you had? Did you go through the syllabus? Any doubts that you have with regard to anything that we discussed in the last class? All right, let's start the class for the day then. If you do not have any doubts, let's start the class. But make sure that you are going through some of the notes of the previous day's class. Make sure that you are reading the syllabus. Make sure that you are in touch with the syllabus paper. I mean the syllabus paper, because at least you know what we are dealing with, right? So today we are starting with methods of regionalization. We are continuing with that. We'll be also taking up growth centers and growth poles and regional imbalances also. So let's see how this class goes. So 4 hours we have today, let's see. Okay. Methods of regionalization. Out of that, we are taking up delimitation of formal region. The next thing is yesterday, we dealt about delimitation of nave region. This is not that important. Let me tell that very clearly. This is not that important. Formal region. Formal region and functional region is even more important than naive region. Okay, so today we are starting with this delimitation of a formal region. So in that, first of all, formal regions, a very important thing with formal region is when compared to naive region, they have clear-cut boundaries. They have clear-cut boundaries. Like, for example, if I am talking about Himalayan mountainous region, I know where the mountains are extending. I know how long is I can actually mark it using some of the physical characters. If I'm talking about administrative boundaries, I know how much of the extent is my any district administrative boundary. And in a clear cut, I can draw the boundaries, right? So formal regions have, the very first thing is they have clear cut boundaries. And to delimit, to mark the boundaries of this formal region, I have two important techniques. The first technique is number one. The first technique is make sure that you're taking some running notes also. The number one, weighted index number method. Weighted index number method. What is weighting? What is this weighing concept? Weighing concept, what is it? See, remember this index called as HDI? What do they do in HDI index? I have weighted averages of my education, literacy levels, my standards of living, my per capita income. I take weighted averages of these three things, and that's how I come up with the United Nations Development Program. It comes up with the HDI, correct? There is this concept of weighted average or mean of certain parameters. Yes, suppose let's say suppose let's say that in a region, I have to calculate. Maybe if I have to calculate the employment patterns. This is one example. This is example number one. Example number two. Let's say that I have to calculate the employment parameter or the employment uh, in this region of Kottayam or in any given region that I am taking for planning. I am trying to calculate the employment ratio of that particular region. So what are the parameters that I will take into account? First data that I will take into account is how many people are there in the workforce. How many people are there in the workforce? Population, workforce population. Then what will I take? From the local companies, I can get some how many people are working. So employment details from local sources. And then I can take the per capita income levels. Let's say on the basis of all of these three things, if the per capita income is high, I know like a decent amount of people are actually engaged in formal sectors. If the employment details is very much, if I'm getting it, then I will again know how many people are employed in formal sectors, because informal sectors I cannot get the employment details as clearly. Workforce population. How many of the people are there in the workforce age? Workforce age in somewhere about greater than 18 to 60 or 15 to 60, let's say, roughly say. So I can get all of these data and I can roughly estimate what is the employment status or the employment status with regard to that particular region. What am I doing here? I am giving a certain value. Let's say that I am giving a value of, if workforce population, I will give a value of 60%. Employment details or weighted average ആണ് കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. Employment details I am valuing it for 40%. Let's say 20%. Per capita income, I am giving a value of 20%. So out of 100, how much is a region scoring? Out of 100, how much is a region scoring? Like that, if I'm calculating it for every region, for Kottayam if I'm calculating, for Idukki if I'm calculating, for Cochin if I'm calculating for different districts, I will come up with a weighted index method. Like let's say like Kottayam has got an average or has got a score of 75. Idukki has got a score of 60. Pathanamthitta has got a score of 50. Then I can say out of all these three districts, Kottayam is better. Kottayam is better. This is the technique behind the weighted index method, weighted index number method. I am delineating a region. I am classifying regions on the basis of certain indices. I'm giving some value, some parameters, some weights. That's the better word. I'm giving, follow me closely. What did I do here? I am giving weights, which means you can to understand, for understanding purpose, you can understand like marks. How many marks out of 100? So I'm giving certain values or weights to each parameter, and the areas with similar weights are separated, and I can easily say that this is having more weight, this is having less weight. Idukki and Pathanamthitta are having less weight. This is weighted index number method. Weighted index number method, and the best example is HDI index, which is brought out by UNDP. Another thing is something like this. If I have to calculate the employment status of a particular region, I can take these three parameters, give a particular weight to each of them, and compare different regions on the basis of the weighted average that is generated. On the basis of the weighted average that is generated. All right. So this is the weighted index number method. Now, there are there are what can you say? I'll use a different page. There are three types of or three subtypes of weighted index method. There are three subtypes of weighted index type method. First one is fixed index type. B, variable index type. C, cluster method. All right. So let's look at each of them separately. First one is fixed index method. Fixed index method is what I have discussed right now. That is your per capita income, unemployment. I am taking the what is the other one that I've taken? Workforce population, employment, per capita income. ഇതൊക്കെ വെച്ചിട്ട് if I'm taking the average of all of this, what I'm getting is, let's say that if I'm getting 75 for, again, let me write 75 for Kottayam. I will have a fixed index. Follow me very, very closely. I'm calculating the indices of different districts. And I am comparing that with a fixed index. The fixed index says that if my weighted average is above 65, then that is a highly employed district. If my weighted average is anywhere below 65, then that is a low employment status district. So like that, I'm having a fixed index. So this is how HDI works, right? This is how HDI works. So they will be having a fixed value, and they will say that countries like Norway, Sweden, they are all very well developed countries because they are having an index value, a HDI value of greater than this much. The ones that is following between this range and this range is nothing but developing countries. The ones that are following lesser than this value of HDI is actually least developed countries. They are, you know that, right? You know how HDI is divided, yes or no? There is a range for LDCs, least developed countries, developing countries, and developed countries. Yes or no? There is a range of values for HDI. Now that is an example of fixed index method. They are fixing an index and they are telling that those whoever are greater than this value will be developed countries, those whoever are less than this value will be developing countries, and even if they are lesser than another fixed index, they will be calculated as least developed countries. So that is basically the fixed index method. Okay, now coming to variable index method. So here what happens is, suppose let's say that I have two regions. Region A is a wheat cultivating region. Region B is let's say region B is a coal region. Region A is a wheat region, region B is a coal region. Then in this case, if I am calculating that, what does this mean? The region A is calculating or producing too much amount of wheat, and region B is producing too much amount of coal. So I can easily say that on the basis of the different substances that is produced, I can say region A is a wheat region, region B is a coal region, and the weight of wheat as a produce will be greater in region A. The weight of coal as a produce will be greater in region B. And in this case, in certain cases, here what am I comparing? I'm comparing commodities. I'm comparing commodities or production entities, which goods are produced excessively, which goods are produced excessively. I'm comparing commodities. I'm comparing commodities, or I'm comparing which goods are produced excessively. Sometimes there will be certain cases where comparability will not become possible. When comparability is possible, I can use variable index method, but certain cases, comparability will not be possible. Like for example, let us say that I am comparing coal production and let's say literacy rate. Can I compare these two? Here at least I'm comparing here at least I'm comparing coal and wheat. Excuse me, sorry. Here at least I'm comparing two commodities, coal and wheat. Here what am I doing? I'm comparing coal and literacy rate. Isn't compare? I cannot compare. Let's say that I am talking about the state of Karnataka. In Karnataka, I am discussing, okay, let's keep it as Jharkhand. In Jharkhand, I'm comparing how much of coal is getting produced and how much is the literacy rate of Jharkhand people. Can I compare them? Can I compare anything between coal and literacy rate? No. So in this situation, comparison, when it is becoming difficult, I can use the third method, which is cluster method. What will I do in cluster method? In cluster method, I will take all the parameters which I need to compare, like coal, literacy rate, anemia of women population, death rate, whatever I want to compare, I will take the maths, I will take the statistics. I will take the statistics of all of these individual data. All of them are individual. They cannot be compared. I am using the statistical data of all of these individual things, and I will use the technique of superimposition. I will use the technique of superimposition, and I will plot the maps in the same map. That is, I will take the Jharkhand map. I will take the Jharkhand map. In the same map, I will plot the coal production where it is higher. Suppose, let's say coal production is higher here. I will plot the coal production map. I will plot the literacy map. I will plot the anemia map. And it is a cluster method. That's why we call it as the cluster method, where we can interrelate variables which are, we can interrelate variables which are otherwise incomparable. So if I'm talking about incomparable quantities, incomparable data, how can I compare them? I can compare them using cluster method by the technique of superimposition. Suppose, let's say that I'll give you one more example. This is example number 1. Let me give you one more example. Example number 2 for cluster method. Suppose, let's say that I have to compare rainfall of India as a whole, and Along with that, I need to take in the agriculture. I need to take in the soil parameters. I need to take the water, groundwater availability. If I have to compare all of this, they cannot be compared individually. And therefore, what will I do? I will take, first of all, a map of India, and then I will plot the rainfall data, rainfall map. I will draw the rainfall map of India on that political map. After that, I will take the soil character. I will plot it in the same map. I will plot uh, the underground water availability in the same map, and then I will come to an overall conclusion. Wherever the rainfall is high, wherever the groundwater is high, I can cultivate rice. I can cultivate maybe sugarcane. So this will in turn tell me how the people, the farmers are choosing a particular crop on the basis of different parameters. This is cluster method. This is the technique of superimposition that we are following in the cluster method. So we have discussed three methods. Any doubts in any of these methods? Fixed index, variable index, and cluster method.
Ma'am, a variable index would explain ചെയ്യാവോ?
Cluster, okay, variable index. Anything else? Okay, so understand this variable index method when I am comparing two entities alone. Okay, the weighted average that is given to a particular region on the basis of two index, or the basis of two things. Like I can compare wheat and coal. I can compare wheat and coal of a particular region. I can compare wheat and rice of a particular region. So when I need to compare two entities, which is where is wheat majorly produced in state of UP, where is maybe if I'm talking about chicken curry work of Lucknow. This is a very famous artwork of Lucknow. So where is chicken curry work produced majorly? Where is the woodworks of Ferozabad? Woodworks of Ferozabad, where is it produced? If I'm comparing the art and culture, if I'm talking about, let's take Faridabad glass work. If I'm comparing about all of these that is present in UP, I can compare individually. Okay, this is produced in Faridabad. This is produced in Ferozabad. Chicken curry work is done in Lucknow. So I can take where majority of a particular product is undertaken. Where is the majority of the volume of the goods? Where is it majorly produced? Wheat, where is it majorly produced? Coal, where is it majorly produced? Based on the largest index, based on the largest index value of a particular commodity, I can classify that region to be a wheat region, or I can classify that region to be a chicken curry work region. I can classify that region of UP to be a woodworks region. This can even be extended to services. Services, like where is the majority of hospitals situated? So that can be classified as a largest index value of that particular region. Hospital region, I can classify it as a hospital region. I can classify something to be an educational region. So this is variable index method. The index are two different indices, but I am taking the largest index value of a particular region, and I am classifying that index to be a region of a specific commodity or a specific goods or a specific service. That is variable index. Let me have another thing that was asked. Let me quickly take it. Cluster is very simple. Cluster is nothing. Cluster is basically I'm taking different parameters. I'm taking coal, I'm taking literacy rate, anything whichever cannot be compared. That's what I've written it here. Interrelate. If I have to interrelate variables which otherwise cannot be compared. I can compare it using cluster method. If I need to compare agriculture, rainfall, climate patterns, groundwater availability, these are different things. But if I have to compare together, then I have to use the technique of superimposition in the cluster as done in the cluster method. All right, so that is it about the very first thing, months. So that is it about the first method of formal region delimitation, which is weighted index number method. The second one is number 2, and ഇവിടെ ഒരു 3 subtypes ആണ്. These are the 3 subtypes that we have seen. The third important thing is, the second important thing is factor analysis method. And let me again and again repeat it for you. Formal and functional region delimitation is more important than naive region. Nobody is going to ask you naive region. Formal region and functional region is even more important. Just a second. Okay, fine. Now follow this factor analysis method. Suppose let's say that I need to mark out industrial region. I need to mark out an industrial region. What are the different factors which will delineate an industry? Let me tell you. Labor is one factor. Land availability is one factor. Maybe I can talk about market availability or raw material availability. These are all factors which will influence the location of an industry. If I'm talking about industrial region delimitation, these are my factors. So I will plot all the factors which are directly, that's the important word, all the factors which are directly associated with the with any criteria, with any phenomenon that I'm talking about. It can be industrial region, it can be educational region. For educational region delimitation, what are the factors which is needed? First of all, institutions. Second, I need availability of students. I need availability of students. Then what do I need? Again, I need a favorable market which will lead to the demand. See, if there is if that particular area is filled with old age people, who will come and read in the educational institution. So in short, I will need all of this to set up an educational region. These are all the factors for the setting up of an educational region. These are all the factors for setting up an industrial region. So if I am plotting, maybe if I'm talking about labor, migration of labor, if I'm plotting the workforce population of the labor, the free land availability, if I'm plotting all of these factors in the map, it becomes the factor analysis method. All right. So that is it about formal region. Then we are moving on to functional region delimitation. We are moving on to functional region delimitation or delineation of functional region. what is basically a formal region where I can properly define my boundary, administrative boundary, physical factors based boundary, anything where I can properly define my boundaries. Functional region is where the idea is basically about a particular function. The idea is basically about a particular function. And the most important point is interdependence. This is the key word here. Interdependence of cities, towns, villages happens in a functional region. If I'm talking about transport services, I'm talking about transport. Again, I'm going back to yesterday's class. This is not something that is related to today's class, but yesterday's class is discussed from the same thing I'm discussing again. If I'm talking about transport services, if this is the metropolitan area, from here, the transport services will be extending to certain important towns and cities and villages. All that will be under the sphere of influence of that particular transport service. If I'm talking about what else about the education, again, let's hospital service. If I'm talking about hospital service, hospital is a service, right? So this falls under the service sector, a tertiary service sector. So hospital vendita population is coming to that particular region. So that will decide the functionality of a region, or it will directly depend on the interdependence of cities, towns, and villages. The village will depend on the city will depend on the village. Why? If I'm talking about a hospital, the villagers will come to the hospital, definitely. So they are dependent on the city. The city, that hospital's market is basically dependent on the people who come from the villages. So the city is also dependent on the village. So there is a, if any functionality, if I'm talking, there is a definite character of interdependence. Two basic approaches are there with regard to functional region delimitation. Number one, number one, it is, as you all know, it is flow analysis. Number two, based on gravitational analysis. Which in turn means, if I'm talking about the flow of goods and services, then it comes under flow analysis method. If I am talking about gravitational analysis, it's quite simple. I am talking about the concept of attraction between different centers, attraction between different centers, rather than the actual flow of the goods and services. How many people feel attracted towards a particular city? How much of an influence a particular city has on the nearby areas? That is gravitational analysis. Both are, which we have discussed many times, both are can you say, they are examples or methods of delineating a functional region. This is a method of delineating a functional region. More importantly, uh, a combination of this and this, a combination of flow analysis plus gravitational analysis is given by one method which is called as Thiessen polygon method. This is the method. These are different approaches, Anna, but this is the one method which is used to mark your functional region. Now this is something that we have already dealt before. But we are learning it in a different name here. Let me elaborate what is Thiessen polygon method. The Thiessen polygon method, it was already asked in, now take this down, this is already asked in a particular question with regard to 2016 optionals. What is the Thiessen polygon method, or what is it all about? Let me tell you. First of all, it is a method which is used to mark the functional boundaries, and this is something that was undertaken. Functional, I'm sure that you are taking some running notes. These are some things that is used to mark the functional boundaries, and this was undertaken initially to plot rainfall patterns of American region. All right, used to plot the rainfall patterns. That's how this method was. Any civil engineers here?
Yes, ma'am.
So that you might know about Thiessen polygon method.
Yes, ma'am. അത് പഠിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട് ഒരു സെമ്മിന്.
Yeah. So what exactly do you use for what do you use this method? Civil
റെയിൻഫോൾ
engineers.
ഒരു മെത്തേഡ് ആയിരുന്നു.
Rainfall അതിന് മാത്രമാണ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. മറ്റപടി you don't use it for practicals, civil, any practicals? No, you don't use it.
No, ഞാൻ പ്രാക്ടിക്കൽ ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല ഇതുവരെ.
Okay.
ഇല്ല.
Okay, so you might have learned only about the theory. Okay, fine. Rainfall patterns of American region, that's how this method was started initially. But later on, the functionality of this method was used for many purposes. A, it was used for land use planning data or land use planning region. Adana plot cheyanayittu land use planning. Then it is used to find out the or identify the functional areas of, maybe if I'm going to set up a hospital, maybe if I'm going to set up certain educational institutions, if I need to know what are the areas from where people will come and join my hospital, what are the areas from where people will come and join my educational institution. If I'm opening a mall in the middle of the city, where should I open my mall? Who are my target audiences? If I'm opening a theater, where should I open my theater? Who are my target audiences? All that is a part of all that is being used or undertaken by the Thiessen polygon method. Land use planning, planning of hospital services, education services, construction of malls, construction of theaters, etc. Right. The question that was asked in 2016 is this: what is a region? What is a region? Describe the Thiessen polygon method of regional delimitation. So they just asked what is a region, concept of region, which you can describe, and describe the Thiessen polygon method. Very simple. Let me go through it. I mean, let me take you through this process. First of all, let me take a simple three-sided thing. I'm having three educational institutions, A, B, and C. Okay. What am I having initially? I'm having three educational institutions, which are basically nodes. Yes or no? Yesterday we discussed about the concept of nodes. So this is node A, this is node B, this is node C. I am connecting all of these three nodes. I am connecting all of these three nodes. Now what happens is I am taking the midpoint of these three things. I am taking the midpoint of these three things, and I am just those three lines. Now there is a point I'm getting here. There is a center node that I'm getting here. We call this as the center node. So what am I doing? First of all, whatever areas of studying, whatever nodes that I have to study, I plot it in a map. So I plotted A, B, and C. I connect those three nodes. I connect A, B, B, C, and C, A. I take the midpoints of these three lines. I join those three lines. I extrapolate these three bisectors. I'm getting a midpoint, which I call it as, or a center point, or an intersection point of these three lines, which I call it as the center node O. Center node O. Now what I'm doing is, I will actually, this is, let me take a different ink. Now I will be joining the center point O. I will be joining the center point O with the midpoint of these three things. Actually, this will not be a straight line like this. I mean, both will not intersect, but they will not intersect. And I will be drawing the, I will be connecting the O with the midpoint of these three lines. And that one, this polygon that I have generated here, is the influence region of node A. This polygon, the second polygon, that, what is a polygon? Basically a four-sided entity is what I call it as a polygon. So here, what is my polygon? I'm having something like this. So this is my second polygon. This is the region of influence of node B. And here I am having another polygon, which is the region of influence of node C. So this will become functional area of node A. This will become functional area of node B. This will become the functional area of node C. That is how the Pearson polygon method is done. And that is how the functional areas, the functional boundaries of every node or every educational institution or a theater will be plotted on the map. Okay, so this is my Pearson polygon method, which is again, remember, it is a combination of the ideas of flow analysis and gravitational analysis method, which is my Pearson polygon method. All right, so that is my TP method. Now the next thing that we need to analyze is, what are the problems in delineation of a region? What are the various problems of delineation or in delineation of a region? Okay. Now, what are the problems in the delineation of the region? Number one, the very first problem is, there can be misinterpretation of data. Like what? Misinterpretation of data means what? Let's talk about steel production or coal production zones. Again, we cannot say for sure that there can be some minor pockets of steel production also. So we call it as integrated steel plants, mini steel plants, and so on. That may not be taken into account when we are talking about steel production, maybe in Karnataka. We'll be talking about some major steel production centers, maybe Bellary. Maybe if I'm talking about something like that, then those are major steel production centers. But I might leave some of those minor steel production areas. Similarly, if I'm talking wheat production, I will be talking about UP, belts of maybe Madhya Pradesh, stuff like that. What if there is a small pocket of wheat that is being produced in Andhra Pradesh? I might leave it. Yes. So there is a lack of correlation of data. There is a chance of misinterpretation of data because it is highly prone to subjective opinion, because the interpretation is highly subjective in nature. So that can be one problem in delineation of a region. Second thing is, I told you that a region is having a dynamic character to it. Yes or no? Yesterday I mentioned this. A region is having dynamic character. What do you mean by that? A region will change with changing times. So what is today a backward region will not be a backward region 5 years from now. The data will be changed. So the dynamic character of the region is also one of the problems delineating a region. The third important thing is the boundary classification that we have, which is the functional region and formal region. The classification of functional region and formal region, it is overlapping at certain points. It is overlapping at certain points. If I'm talking about administrative boundaries of Kottayam, that is a formal region. But if I'm talking about the administration of a district as a function, that can also be talked as a functional region. So the definition is overlapping, the character of region is overlapping, and that makes it even more difficult for delineating it properly. That's the third important problem. Fourth important problem is, are you taking this down? Are you taking these things down? It's not very clear in the notes also. Are you taking running notes? Yes or no? These problems, at least you take running notes. It's pretty important. Okay. Fourth important problem is gravity model problem. What is the problem in gravity model? Suppose, let's say, gravity model problem or gravitational analysis problem. Yes, Uttari vandattundu, which is good. Now, gravity model problem, gravitational analysis problem. What is this about? See, this one I've already described to you one of the previous classes. That is, if I'm comparing in gravitational analysis, what will exactly I be doing? I will be taking the population of one particular city. I will be taking the population of another city, and which one has greater population, that one will influence that if I repeat, if A has greater population than B, if A has greater population than B, then this city of A, this city of A will have a greater influence than the city of B. This is my analysis. This is my crux of gravitational analysis. Attraction of a particular city when compared to another city is basically dependent on the population ratio, is dependent upon the intensity of population numbers. Suppose if this is a village which has greater population, and this is a city with all modern amenities but with lesser population. This village A has greater population than city B. City B has got good education facilities, has got excellent hospital facilities, but the population is less. Maybe it can be an agrarian country which is slowly developing. In that case, if I am using this gravity model in this particular example, which place will have greater attraction? It is A. It is A which will have greater attraction in spite of being a village. In spite of being a village, if I'm using the gravity model analysis, then village A will be having a greater point of attraction than the city B, and therefore this is a flawed model. This is the gravity model, since it is entirely based on population. Sometimes there might be a village which has too much of population than a city which has good tertiary amenities, but with less population. And in that case, the village will be attracting greater, the village will be having greater intensity as per the gravitational model. And this is a flaw of the gravitational model. Okay, so these are the important problems in delineation of a region. And then one more thing you can add, one more thing, number five, the concept of distance. Concept of distance, it is slowly losing its relevance. Concept of distance is concept of distance is slowly losing its relevance. Why? Because of the advent of modern transportation facilities, metro, we have high-speed trains, we have expressways, highways, and so on. The concept of distance is not as pronounced as before. See, understand something. All these theories and the methods, they were started after my quantitative revolution, 1940s, 1950s. They were started after my quantitative revolution. So you can take it as, you can take all of these methods as something that started in the early 1960s. So in short, at that point of time, transportation is only taking baby steps. But right now, transportation is very highly developed, that even today, if I want, I can go to Trivandrum, watch a movie, come back. That concept of distance is not as pronounced as had been before. Therefore, the distance between one city and another city is shrinking. See, the distance between Chennai and Bangalore is only 2 hours now. Because of flight, a person who is working in Chennai can go to Bangalore for weekdays, I mean weekends, and then come back to his hometown, work during the weekdays. The concept of distance is not as pronounced. So that is also another factor where region delineation becomes a problem, because I cannot say that a person from a village will only come to a particular city for education. No, a person in Kerala can also go and study in IIT Kharagpur. The distance, the concept of distance is shrinking. It's no more a big thing as what had been there long back. That is also one of the reasons for problems of delineation. Understood? Yes. Can I go ahead to the next topic? Okay, fine then. Okay. The next topic that we are moving to, so we have done a concept of region, types of region, methods of regionalization. The next topic that we have is growth centers and growth poles. Very, very interesting topic. Oh, growth centers and growth poles. Every country in this world is just aiming for one thing. What is it? Economic development. No matter if you are very rich, if you are very poor, we are always looking for economic development. That is the ultimate goal that every government is trying to achieve. The theories of growth pole is also an economic theory. It is an economic theory. It has been growth pole theory was given by French economist Francois Perrault. Francois Perrault, he was the one who gave the theory of growth pole. It is an economic model, no doubt about it. And this started in the country of France. So he was studying about the phenomenon, economic phenomenon of his country of France, and he came up with a theory which is called as the growth pole theory. We'll come to growth center theory in a short while, but let's first of all look at growth pole theory. He attempted to explain how economic growth, Perot wanted to explain how economic growth can come up in any country, and how it can lead to the concept of equilibrium of growth. How it can lead to the concept of equilibrium of growth. He said, if I am having a growth pole in a particular nation, slowly and steadily, I can lead it. This can lead to the concept of equilibrium of growth. Growth in one point will trickle down to another place, and therefore we'll be having an equilibrium of growth. This was the theory that was put forth by Franco Perot. Now, growth pole, its central idea is that economic development cannot be happening over an entire region. I repeat. According to this idea, the central idea is that economic development cannot be happening over an entire region. Like, for example, if I'm talking about Jharkhand, let's say, not every a town in Jharkhand, not every town in Jharkhand can be centers of growth. There cannot be growth that is happening at every part of Jharkhand. If I'm going to set up Jindal Steel Works in Jharkhand, if I'm going to set up Tata Steel Works in Jharkhand, I cannot set up a plant in every village. No, there can be only one plant for that entire state, and that can be developed into a growth. Whoa, this was the idea. So the central idea of the growth pole theory is what? That economic development cannot be uniform over an entire region, but instead it will take place around a specific pole or a cluster. I repeat, the central idea of growth pole theory is that economic development cannot be uniform over an entire region, but it will always take place around a growth pole or a cluster. Now, this cluster or a pole can be an industry, can be any key industry. So it can be an automotive sector, it can be a petrochemical sector, it can be a steel sector, iron and steel industry, anything like that. Okay, so if I'm talking about Maruti Suzuki as a company, that can function as a growth pole. In the case of Haryana, in Manesar, I have Maruti Suzuki, and that will function as a growth pole for that entire state. Interestingly, this core industry, follow me very closely, this core industry, they will purchase certain goods and services from its suppliers. They will also produce certain goods and services to its customers. I have two linkages. What is it? The first one is, this industry will produce for its customers certain goods and services. To produce these goods and services, this industry will need some raw materials. It will need some what do you call, some basic goods and services to produce a car. See, suppose let's say tomorrow I'm going to produce a Royal Enfield bike. I'm going to produce a Royal Enfield bike. The first thing that I will need is a rubber industry nearby so that tires can be manufactured. Then I need a metal industry so that the body of the automobile, the Royal Enfield bike, the body part of it. Adana manufacturer, I need metal industry, I need steel industry. After that, what do I need? I need R&D. What goes inside the machine? I need research and development. So I need an R&D wing. All of these are demands of the Royal Enfield industry. And then, so this core industry, which I am setting it as up as a growth pole, will need some ancillary industry so that this core industry can function. At the same time, it will also produce some bikes which will be sold to customers. So there is a direct effect, there is an indirect effect with regard to manufacturing of goods and services at a particular economic level. It can be a state, it can be a country. So this is the concept behind growth pole, or the basic idea behind growth pole. The growth pole, this theory of growth pole, again, let me tell you, I'm sure it would have been done as a part of your chapter 5, but I'm just giving you an outline of this concept of GP and GC because it is given as a part of my 4th chapter also. Has it been already done? Has it been dictated? Even otherwise, I will give you notes, but has it been dictated? The comparison has been done with regard to GP and GC? Has there been a comparison done between GP and GC? Difference between growth centers and growth poles? Has there been a comparison done? GP versus GC, has there been a comparison done? No. But this was completed. GPGC was done completely. Perot model, Borivili model was done completely. Because if it's not done, then I will give it to you right now. So that's why I'm asking. Has this topic been done, dusted, completed? Has this topic been covered completely? Because if it's done, we can go in a different phase. If it is not done, we should be going in a different phase. At least put it in the chat box. Someone. Okay. Okay. Fine. Fine then. Fine. Let's do this then. Now understand, there are certain concepts of growth poles. There are certain concepts of growth poles. The first thing is growth pole. Again, take some running notes. The first concept is concept of economic space. Concept of economic space. So basically understand this concept is nothing. Concept of economic space in Parambo, it's a concept. GP, growth pole, is entirely an economic concept. It is based on the idea of economic space, that is factors of production. What is factors of production? Basically my land, labor, raw material, stuff like that. So these factors of production should be centralized in one particular place. Factors of production should be centralized in a particular place so that economic growth can be achieved. So that economic growth can be achieved. So that maximum results can be obtained and economic growth can be achieved. Now, have you heard this concept of Weber's model? Weber's model of industrial location was done. Weber's model of industrial location. Yes?
No, no, ma'am.
No. Okay, so you will be learning that again in chapter number 5. But let me give you a quick point. Weber's model of industrial location is nothing but where can I place my industry, any industry, steel and iron and steel plant or sugarcane factory or anything. Industrial, where can I place my industry? Where can I locate my industry? So on the basis of, again, on the basis of raw materials, I can place an industry. So there are many techniques, but basically Weber's model of industrial location is based on 3 principles. Number 1, A, profit maximization. I have to maximize the profit. This is common sense. Profit maximization, any industry, if I have to locate, where will I locate? I will locate it in a place where I will get maximum profit. Suppose tomorrow I am going to set up an optical glass, what do you call? Glass making factory, eyeglasses. Do you think I will place it in a remote corner of the country? No. Where there are maximum opticians available in a particular city, I will locate my optical shop in that spot. I will not locate it in a village, right? Because there will be maximum number of people who will come and visit the eye doctor. They will wear glasses. So I need to place my optical optician glass making shop at a center of the city, so that I get maximum profit. Profit maximization is one of the important factor for industrial location or shop location. The next thing is distance minimization. You will be reading more about this. This is just a rough outline. The distance minimization, suppose let's say that I need to transport a raw material for about 300 kilometers to reach my industry. Is that viable? No. I need to make sure that the distance that is being traveled on a daily basis is very less. Distance minimization. The third thing is, at the end of the day, the production cost should be least. So least cost of production. These 3 aspects are the basic core behind Weber's model. Even when I am designing my growth pole, which is basically nothing but a core industry to drive the economic growth of a particular country, I will be taking into account the concept of economic space, which is again dependent on, or which is again following the Weber's 3 principles. So what is the concept of economic space? It is an economic GP, growth pole theory is an economic concept where the idea is to set up an economic space on the basis of using the factors of production, centralizing the factors of production in a particular area so that maximum economic growth can be achieved. Now, I cannot concentrate, I cannot centralize this in any area, right? So, adana vendittu use in which area should I use to centralize my factors of production? That has been in a way decided, indirectly decided by Weber's model of industrial location. So this is the concept of economic space as given in my Pero model, GP model. The second concept, The second concept is concept of leading industry. What is this? Basically, I cannot choose any industry. I cannot choose any industry. Suppose, let's say that I am setting up vessel making industry. I am setting up copper vessel making industry. Now tell me, do people in general use copper vessel? No, we use it for, maybe in a temple we can use it. Maybe for some auspicious thing, excuse me. Maybe for some auspicious thing, we can bring a copper vessel, a brass vessel or something like that, but we cannot use it on a regular basis. So ഇങ്ങനെ ഞാൻ ഒരു ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ചൂസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ it will not be that good for an for it to develop as a growth pole. For something to develop as a growth pole, it should be a leading industry. For something to develop as a growth pole, it should be a leading industry. Cotton textile industry is one such leading industry for Britain during the colonial times. Yes or no? Cotton textile industry was one such leading industry for the British during the colonial times. Similarly, iron and steel plant has been one of the leading sectors for industries to develop during the 1950s, 60s, 5-year plan of India. You have to choose a firm which will propel the economic growth of the country. Which will propel the economic growth of the country. It shouldn't be a sleeping sector like copper vessel sector. Hardly some 2-3 people. Maybe if you're setting up a copper vessel industry in Kottayam, some maybe some 100 people will come and get copper vessels from you on a monthly basis. But iron and steel is not like that. It drives the economy of a country. Cotton textile sector, it drives the economy of a country. Petroleum sector drives the economy of a country. Hydroelectric power sector drives the economy of a country. It should be, the concept is the concept of leading industry. The next thing is something that is very closely associated to concept of leading industry is the third one, concept of propulsive firm. What is propulsion? Propulsion, where do I use the word propulsion? Suppose, let's say that I am talking about a jet, aeroplane, a jet or something. The fuel should be giving maximum propulsiveness for that flight to take off immediately. So that is propulsiveness. A firm becomes propulsive when it is in that single sector, when that single firm is giving rise to, or it is giving birth to many industrial sectors nearby. That is the concept of propulsive firm. It should accumulate different factors of production, and there should be people who have the risk taking ability. That's very important. There should be people who have the risk taking capacity to venture into new economic sectors. A propulsive firm means R&D should be there. R&D nu parayumbo research and development. So if I'm talking about Tesla is a propulsive firm. What is Tesla? Basically, Elon Musk, he undertakes a firm. He's talking about electric AI based cars, artificial intelligence based cars. That's a propulsive firm. Why? A, because it is talking about a futuristic technology. B, There is a lot of risk taking venture that has gone inside it. See, it is the future. I cannot depend on my what do you call this, fuels, my regular petrol fuels, my regular fossil fuels. It will run out at a certain point of time. But Tesla is going to make cars which is going to run in batteries. There is a huge potential for electric cars in the future. And AI, not just with, no, he's not just stopping with the electric cars. He's also taking one step ahead. He's taking up AI, artificial intelligence. So that's going to be the future. So in short, it is a propulsive firm. There is risk taking ability. It is also pushing certain other industries to grow along with it. Yes, one industry is making certain other industrial sectors to grow along with it, and therefore we can call it as a propulsive firm. A growth model, a growth pole should be having the idea of propulsiveness in them. They should be having the idea of propulsiveness. Number 4, concept of polarization. Concept of polarization. Polarization means centralization. So centralizing what? Basically centralizing my factors of production. So in fact, when I'm discussing about the definition of growth pole itself, I mentioned this word, centralization of factors of production. Centralization of resources, physical resources, human resources, your skilled labor, capital. You need money to set up your industry. All that needs to be centralized in a particular location, and that will be the initial step of setting up growth pole. Fifth factor, or the fifth concept, is concept of linkages. Very, very important. Concept of linkages. What is linkages? Linkages, I mentioned a couple of slides before. This is nothing but linkages. A core industry will sell some products to its customers, will also need some products to manufacture its goods and services. These are nothing but forward and backward linkages. Forward and backward linkages. A good industrial growth pole, excuse me, a good industrial growth pole will have both forward as well as backward linkages. Like what? Again, let me talk about the Royal Enfield bike industry. So what sort of backward linkages will I have? I will have linkages like iron and steel industry. Yes, to manufacture the RE bike, what do I need? I need a body part. I need the very, very stable body part. So iron and steel industry. I need rubber industry. I need glass industry. You need glasses, no? You need glasses for your good quality glasses for your bikes. So you need glass industry. You need some electronic equipments that is to be fixed in front of your bikes. Electronic industry. The front panel needs a lot of electronic equipment. So electronic industries. So these are nothing but my backward linkages. So if I'm setting up a Royal Enfield factory, I need these things. What about the forward linkages? First thing is I need good markets. I need to invest in marketing. I need to invest in marketing, digital marketing, physical marketing. I need to have proper land to set up my my RE showroom. I need to have to have all of this. I need to have loans that is to be given from banks. These are all forward linkages. So there will be one good bank that will approach me. So there will be functioning of good economy will thrive here. Land value will increase in the in that area where I'm going to set up my showroom. Marketing will give lead to a lot of employment activities will be generated in these places. So these are the concepts of linkages. A good growth pole will have excellent forward linkages and will have excellent backward linkages. And sixth point is by far the most important point, concept of agglomeration. Concept of agglomeration. What is agglomeration basically? Agglomeration means accumulation. Simple words, agglomeration means accumulation. So again, when we discussed about the forward and backward linkages, I told you certain things. To set up an RE bike, what do I need? I need glasses. I need small electrical equipment manufacturing units. In short, I am having accumulation of industries will take place at the back end. I will have accumulation of labor at these manufacturing units. Yes or no? I will be having too many labors. RE bike will not manufacture on its own. People need to put in their effort. They need to, yes, there will be robots, but there will be, apart from the robots, that you need to have physical labor also. So labor, it will give rise to a lot of employment opportunities for laborers. It will lead to accumulation of R&D facilities. It will lead to accumulation of good infrastructure in that region. All of them will lead to overall development of that particular region will happen because of the concept of growth pole. So these 6 points are the different concepts behind a growth pole. So let's start from the beginning. The first concept is concept of economic space. I need you to know about web model also. Concept of lead industry. You cannot choose any industry. It should be a leading industry. Concept of, and for example, you can take down these examples that I've given here. It should be a propulsive firm. Again, you can take the example of Tesla. Concept of polarization, concept of linkages, and concept of agglomeration. These are the 6 concepts behind growth pole model. All right. It's not over. There is more to it. But till this, any doubts? Okay, so we'll go ahead. Number 1, stages of development of growth pole. Polarization means centralization. Polarization, the word is so simple. Polarization means centralization. Stages of development. So this is not a hard and it's not a hard and fast classification, or it's not a hard and fast stages of development, but a generalized stages of development. So first thing is period of stationary growth. Period of stationary growth. First, this is the first stage. It is the stage of economic stagnancy. Nothing will happen. Economic, it's the first stage, economic stagnancy. It is a period of, it is a stage of economic stagnancy, and there will be no utilization of resources. Though that place will have resources, but there is no utilization of resources. The place will have capital, but there is no mobilization of the capital will not take place. Labor will be there, but because of the absence of industries, those labor will not have good venues of working. So that is the first stage, stationary growth. Then comes the second stage, concept of centralization or period of centralization. What will happen in this period? It means the factors of the economic space concept. Again, write it like this: the factors of, because the economic space, that word is quite important. So you need not write it as factors of production. You can write it as factors of economic space, and you put economic space within double quotes. Factors of economic space uh, or factors of production, you can write like this, that would be better. Factors of production are moving towards the economic space. Factors of production are moving towards the economic space, and put the economic space within double quotes. And therefore, what will happen when factors of production are moving towards the economic space? It means centralization is beginning to develop. Factors of production: labor, land, capital, land, labor, capital, and your markets, basically. They are slowly moving towards my economic space. New ventures are getting developed. New activities are getting initiated. An economic space is beginning to be developed. This economic space will later on develop into a full-fledged growth pole. So ഇതാണ് നമ്മുടെ second stage, development of the economic space because of the period of, or because of the character of centralization. And then comes, and then it is followed by, it is followed by cumulative causation. That means cumulative causation as given by Gunnar Myrdal, Gunnar Myrdal, Gunnar Myrdal, cumulative causation as suggested by Gunnar Myrdal. What is this? Basically, I'm having an industry. Ipo period of stationary growth കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്, period of centralization കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്, ഒരു economic spaceന്റെ ഒരു initiation ആണ് നമ്മളിപ്പോ കണ്ടത് up to point number 2. Now, what will happen is this economic space that is getting initiated, it slowly will start to absorb a leading industry or a propulsive firm towards that particular center. The attraction of a leading industry slash a propulsive firm, a propulsive firm will develop at the point of centralization. Economic growth would have started by this point, and what will happen is, it will, this point is very, very important, take this down. It will, this period will see drainage of resources from the neighboring areas, from the surrounding areas, towards the point of centralization, or drainage of resources will happen towards the point of centralization or towards the point of the economic space. This is known as backwash effect. This is known as backwash effect, where ഇവിടെയാണ് ഒത്തിരി റിസോഴ്സസും പിന്നെ നമ്മുടെ മറ്റേ capital movement of capital is also towards the economic space. It is also towards the point of centralization. What will happen to the other places? If one is alone developing, if one particular spot, Bilai steel plant, let's say, if I'm talking about Bilai steel plant, if one region alone is being developed at the cost of the other surrounding areas, we call it as a backwash effect. So what happens is, as Gunnar Myrdal suggested, if there is too much of backwash effect, you know what will happen? It will lead to drainage of resources, wherein the other surrounding areas will be rendered poor and backward, and the growth pole will grow at the cost of the surrounding areas. That word is important. The growth pole will grow at the cost of the surrounding areas. Example, Chhattisgarh got the Bilai steel plant, which is Bilai steel plant is a major steel plant of our country. But just because Bilai steel plant is there, can you say Chhattisgarh is developed? No. Chhattisgarh is one of the you call it as the there is a specific word for it, mineral curse. Yes, resource curse region. It is a resource curse region. It is a resource cursed region. What is a resource cursed region? Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand. These are all resource rich regions. But in spite of so much of minerals that it has, it is still a very, very poorly developed state of our country. This is called as a resource cursing. This is called as resource cursed regions. Very important term. Backwash effect is an example, or it is a phenomenon of resource curse effect, because the one central the growth pole, it will develop at the cost of other surrounding areas. This is given by relative causation model of Gunnar Myrdal as backwash effect. As backwash effect. It is given in this theory in the name of backwash effect. Okay, so that is my third one important concept. Then comes the next stage, is my stage of agglomerative phase, or period of agglomeration. Period of agglomeration. The backwash effect will get more and more pronounced. The surrounding areas will be drained of their resources, and the growth pole will be growing disproportionately larger than the other urban centers. Thus, what will happen here? Thus, growth pole alone will be excessively developed, and it will lead to agglomeration of industries. If this is a growth pole, surrounding that, I will be having too many industries. But the surrounding areas will be drained of their resources because of pronounced backwash effect. Number 5 is final one, which is trickle down effect. or trickle down period or trickle down phase. This is the last phase of growth pole development. Agglomerative phase ആണ് നമ്മുടെ maximum um, development of growth pole has been achieved in the agglomerative phase. Maximum development of growth pole has been achieved in the agglomerative phase, and trickle down phase is the last phase of growth pole development. And here something, um, it is suggested by Gunnar Myrdal. Again, remember, it is suggested by Gunnar Myrdal that spread out effect, opposite of backwash effect, spread out effect will happen in the trickle down phase of the growth pole development. But actually, this trickle down effect has not been witnessed in any of the growth poles. Most of the growth poles, though we have thought that trickle down will be very, very effective, but it was not that effective as has been suggested by these economic scientists, including Franco Ipero. Okay, so trickle down is the last phase of growth pole development theory. Gunnar Myrdal suggested spread out effect will happen here. Trickle down, the benefits which has been accumulated by the growth pole will slowly trickle down to the other desertified regions. This stage, it's actually marked by dispersal of the industries. The stage is marked by dispersal of industries. But what either that theory are, but practically when we have certain growth poles, as pronounced as had been expected. There is a trickle down effect, but it is not that effective as had been expected. All right. Any doubts in these 5 stages? We have more to cover. Anything else? We can go to the next point. Otherwise, any doubts in these 5 stages? So okay, we'll go to the next one then. So keeping in mind, you can take down the heading is growth pole stages of development. One note you can write. You can write a note, or maybe you can take down this point. Keeping in mind this concept of growth pole concept, we have developed many steel plants in our country. Many industrial plants have been designed during the second 5-year plan, keeping in mind the idea of growth pole concept. So growth pole concept from the Indian perspective, what can you say about it? The second 5-year plan, many industries were designed, like Bhilai steel plant, like Durgapur plant. These were designed keeping in mind that ultimately there will be some trickle down, and these poorly developed areas will have development, at least in the future. That was the idea. But even now, it's been many years. Even now, the second 5-year plan, Mahalanobis plan, that was not that successful, and the trickle down effect has not been prominent when you are taking many states, including Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, or Odisha for that matter. The trickle down is not that prominent. All right. So this is a small note that you can take down. You can take down second 5-year plan. You can take down that trickle down effect is not popular. Maybe if you want, you can take down Durgapur steel plant, Bhilai steel plant, Rourkela plant. So these were discussed as a, these were opened as a part of my second 5-year plan, but the trickle down effect was not that prominent. Okay, now let me see, one person has messaged. What is it? Can you repeat the agglomeration phase? Agglomeration phase is the maximum development of growth pole takes place in the agglomeration phase. Agglomeration, this concept I have discussed before. Basically, the concept of agglomeration is industries will be attracted towards the growth pole, labor will be attracted, R&D facilities will be attracted, infrastructure will be attracted, leading to development of region, and that is the maximum stage of development of growth pole, and that is basically agglomeration. Agglomeration, the word in English means attracting industries. But the point is, there would be attraction of industries at the cost of the surrounding effect, at the cost of the surrounding regions, and that is called as backwash effect. From the surrounding regions, if everybody goes to the growth pole, if all the capital goes to the growth pole, surrounding areas will be desertified. That's the problem of the agglomerative phase. All right, now go to the next topic. You can take down, the heading is critical evaluation of growth pole. Critical evaluation of growth pole. I will just discuss the topic. Maybe you can take running notes. Okay. Again, let me tell you, your notes, I will send it in a consolidated format. So do not worry about the printed material. You will be given printed material. Now today, when I'm discussing, maybe I'll be discussing a couple of examples more. So that is why I'm telling you to take running notes. Yes, critical evaluation. Trickle down was not trickle down stage, and the decentralization was not as pronounced as has been expected. So that was one of the defect. The growth pole kept on growing. The second point, growth pole kept on growing at the cost of the surroundings. So in bracket, you can write it as backwash effect. This has led to desertification of the surrounding areas, or drainage of resources from the surrounding areas, and all the resources gets concentrated only in the growth pole. So that is the second major defect. The third important point is, too much importance have been given to this concept of economic space rather than geographical space. The concept of economic space has been given too much of importance, leaving behind the region, leaving behind the geographical space. So this geographical space was later on given importance under growth center theory of Bodivilli. Okay, so that is something that you need to know about. So this was one of the most important criticism of my growth pole concept. Growth pole definitely leads to rapid economic growth. Next point is, it leads to rapid economic growth, but in a short period of time. But definitely the surrounding area did not develop, and this was even witnessed in the France region where this theory was developed. So Paris had too much of development, and France has become a desert. Says critics of Peru. Okay, so these are my critical evaluation of the growth pole theory. Now, what happens to the next one, growth center? We will be doing that in the next class. But wait, if there is anything left out. Now, quick introduction of growth center. We'll give it to you in this class so that we can cover the comparison in the next class. Growth center. Next theory is growth center theory. Now understand, growth centers, growth poles are more like an economic space. Growth center theory was something that was given by Bodivili, and he was studying about the Minas Gerais mines. Minas Gerais mines. In fact, Minas Gerais is one something that we'll be reading about this when we read about the economic geography concept. It is the largest iron ore mines of Brazil. Minas Gerais mines is the largest iron ore mines of Brazil. So he was reading about, I mean, he was analyzing about the Minas Gerais mines of Brazil, of Americas, and he said growth is growth is basically a regional concept and not an economic concept. So he gave a regional character to this concept, and that's why we say that Bodivili gave more importance to regional geographical space than an economical space. Regional geographical space than an economical space. So this is the basic difference. This is the first difference between growth center and growth pole. And growth centers, they are serving as manufacturing centers. They are serving as manufacturing centers or developmental nodes of a particular region. So they manufacturing centers in Parembo or developing nodes in Parembo. What kind of activities they can undertake? Now they can undertake both secondary functions as well as tertiary functions. Now this is also another important point. They can undertake both secondary function and tertiary function. Like what? They can undertake manufacturing of goods. They can also undertake about tertiary service sectors. Service sectors. So if I'm talking about a good Anganwadi that is present in a particular region, and this, and here very, very important, region can be at any level. This regional geographical space can be at any level. Growth pole theory is more on a national level basis. Growth pole theory is more on a national level basis. Here the region can be of any level. So if I'm talking about a small educational institution, small education institution, let's take for example any education institution. Let us take NIT Trichy, not small, but let's take it NIT Trichy or NIT Calicut. The influence of this institution is pretty much spreading to the most parts of the country. So it will have a functional value, and the point is the functional value can be both tertiary as well as having a secondary character to it. Growth centers, it is a regional geographical space, secondary sector, tertiary sector. They will serve as developmental nodes of a region. Developmental nodes of a region. That region can be of any size. The region which you take for studying, it can be a district, it can be a state, it can be your country. So it will be serving as developmental nodes of a region. So broadly, these are the characters behind growth centers. Let us look at the difference between GP and GC in the next class. And there is one more Indian scientist who has developed a concept about growth foci. That also we'll be doing it in the next class. All right. Thank you so much. We'll meet again in the next afternoon session.
Thank you.
Any doubts that you have? If you have any doubts, then you can ask me now. Thank you. Thank you so much.